Welcome you again in the classes of EVS Academy. Today we have to move further in this water pollution chapter, and today we are starting the agricultural pollution. So agricultural pollution, that is mainly done by the fertilizers. What kind of fertilizers? Maybe nitrate type of fertilizer or phosphate type of fertilizer. Both the types of fertilizer are responsible for the agricultural pollution, whether it is phosphate or nitrate, and the chemicals used for the killing of the insect diseases and their causing organisms. Those chemicals are also responsible for the same thing. Excess nutrients causes the eutrophication in the water bodies that we have already seen in the unit 1 as well. So eutrophication is mainly caused by the phosphate. I have already explained that in that unit. And I have told that if phosphate is not available in the options, go with the nitrate. And if both are available, both phosphate and nitrate, so that is the best option because both are responsible for the eutrophication. But the main thing is the phosphatic fertilizer or the phosphate. And the second main thing or key thing is the nitrate. Why it is so? Because in the terrestrial systems, phosphate is a limiting factor. For example, in the lake and ponds, the good amount of nitrate is available, but phosphate is not available that much. So here the phosphate acting as a limiting factor. So if the phosphate will go into these lakes and ponds, so immediately there would be higher growth of the phytoplanktons, algae, and all that will ultimately lead to the eutrophication. In the marine system, phosphate is available in the good quantity, while the nitrate is a limiting factor. So if nitrate is going to the oceans, so it is increasing the nutrient content, whole nutrient content of the ocean, and it can lead to the more growth of the phytoplanktons and the other things present in the ocean. So in the marine ecosystem, the nitrate is a limiting factor there. And in the terrestrial ecosystem, the phosphate is a limiting factor. Both the things you have to remember always so they can form any question from this section as well. Then we have the different cycles as well. What is the cycle? Cycle meaning here is the biogeochemical cycle. So how the nutrient is converting into different forms and going throughout the different organisms in biotic and abiotic factors. That is the cycle of any particular element or biogeochemical cycle. So the phosphorus cycle, if you look at the phosphorus cycle, that is known as the sedimentary cycle. Why sedimentary cycle? Because phosphate is only available in solid form. It is not available in the gas form. So gas form of phosphate is not available. That's why phosphorus is a part of, or phosphorus cycle is called as sedimentary cycle. If you look at the other main elements, for example, other main elements, if you talk about the carbon, so carbon CO2 form we have in the atmosphere. If you talk about the nitrogen, so nitrogen N2 form available in the atmosphere. If you talk about the sulfur, similarly SO2 we have available in the atmosphere, but no gaseous form of phosphorus you can find out in the atmosphere. So the phosphorus starts from the rocks or the solids, it will go to the solution form and again come back to the rock or solid portion. So that is how the phosphorus cycle is going on. That's why the name of the phosphorus cycle is also sedimentary cycle. Then we have the sulfur cycle. Sulfur cycle. So sulfur is present in both form. It can be available in the solid form. In the example of the organisms, we have the proteins, multiple proteins like methionine. These proteins are made up of the sulfur. Main content there is sulfur. So sulfur is available in both the form. It is also available in inorganic form contained with the iron or any other element in the form of FeS2. This is again a solid form. So sulfur is a type of element which is available in both complete solid form as well as in the gaseous form. So the cycle of the sulfur or the biogeochemical cycle of the sulfur is also called as hybrid cycle. So phosphorus cycle is known as the sedimentary cycle, sulfur cycle is known as the hybrid cycle. So I hope these two terms are clear to you. Then what type of pollutions are caused by the different pesticides? So pesticides is a chemical. It is a, what is a chemical? It can be a solution, it can be solid as well. So these chemicals are used to kill the pest. That's why the name here is the pesticide. Similarly, if anything you are using to kill the fishes, so that would be the pesticide. If you are killing something using to kill the fungus, so that would be the fungicides. If you use any chemical to kill down the eggs of the organism, so that can be oocides. So that is how the names are created. So pesticides is a chemical here which is used to kill the pest present in the agricultural field mainly, you can say. So types of the pesticides here we have to discuss. So types is according to the multiple things. The very first type of classification that you can find out in the pesticide pollution or the pesticides, that is the types according to the target group. For what purpose these are used? For example, insecticides. So this is used for killing the insects. We have the fungicides to kill the fungi. We have bactericides to kill the bacteria. We have rodenticides to kill the rodents, especially the mouse or mice. Then ovicides, which are used to kill the eggs of the organisms. That would be the ovicides. So similarly, we have the multiple target group classification of the pesticides. So here the 5 main classification things are provided to you. Then we have types according to the chemical nature of these pesticides, which is more important here that we have to discuss. So these pesticides are divided in 3 main types. So one is the organochlorinated, because main thing that you can find out here is the chlorine. Then we have organophosphate. Main thing here that is killing agent here, that is the phosphate. And then we have the carbamate. We will see one by one in detail all these 3 types of chemical pesticides. So here you can see all the 3 pesticides or types of pesticides you can see here. And what is the difference between these 3 different type of pesticides? The very first one, the organochlorine. So organochlorine is having very long residence time because it is made up of the chlorine. If anything is made up of the chlorine, if carbon chlorine bond is present, so that bond is so strong, it is not going to be easily degradable. So if it is not degradable, so the residence time would be very long here. So in upcoming decades, maybe or multiple years as well, these pesticides will remain as it is in the atmosphere. So this is not a good sign. And because these are having the low residence time, so the toxicity would be low here. Long residence time, so the toxicity would be low here. Why? Because slowly it will release in the atmosphere or in the environment, and effect would be very slow and very long. So these are the organochlorine type of pesticides. The long residence time means the persistent in nature. It means this is not going to be degrade easily. The degradation of these pesticides will very slow, and that's why the degradation is slow. The toxicity would be also low. And the reason behind this is the water insoluble CCl bond. So water acts as a very major thing to degrade anything. So if once water is attached to anything, so the degradation of that thing is very easy. But here the problem is that this is not water soluble. This is water insoluble because of the presence of the CCl bond. And this is highly stable in nature. It means non-reactive in nature. That's why the persistent nature you can find out of the organochlorine. And that's why these are very stable and low toxic. Then we have the organophosphate. Organophosphates are in the middle of the organochlorine and carbamate. So here the residence time would be also few weeks. So once you apply this particular organophosphate type of pesticides, then they can persistent or they can remain in the environment for few weeks without changing their composition or without degrading their self. And the toxicity here would be also medium because these are released in the atmosphere very slowly. And these are generally water soluble and biodegradable in nature. Ultimately, after few weeks, these would be biodegradable. Then we have the carbamate. Carbamate are the best type of pesticides, you can say, which are having the very low residence time. So the effect would be very quick. And effect is very quick. So these are the very highly toxic. And very highly toxic, that's why it will easily kill the pesticides, pests present in the agricultural field or act as a pesticides. And the long-term persistence problem would be also not there in the case of carbamates. And these are polar in nature. Polar means those type of chemicals which have the positive and negative both the sides. And because it is having positive as well as negative side, so the degradation would be very easy because this positive and negative side, it will make it polar, and all the polar substances are soluble in water. So the carbamate is also very highly water soluble and very reactive in nature as well, because it is very ready to react, you can say, or it is having very high reactiveness in the terms of persistence in the atmosphere, in the terms of their action. So this is the key main differences between the organochlorine, organophosphate, and carbamate. If I give you one example of the organochlorine, so that is the DDT. So you all know, I hope that problem associated with the DDT. So because this can persistence in the nature for a very long time, and the degradation is very slow, so it harmfully affect the organisms. So the killing effect of pest is also very low, and the harmful effect is very high. So such type of organochlorine pesticides are completely banned and not in use right now because of their effect on the multiple organisms. While the organophosphate and carbamate are better as compared to the organochlorine because these are the having low resistance time as well as having the high toxicity. So I hope this is clear to you. These are the examples of the organochlorine that you can see here. The very first example here is the DDT, that is dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane. Then we have the aldrin, dieldrin, heptachlor, chloridine, lindane. Lindane is the benzene hexachloride. The name of benzene hexachloride is actually lindane. Then we have the endosulfone. These all are the different type of organochlorine pesticides. Then the organophosphate pesticides are the malathion and parathion, predominantly used in the agricultural crops to kill the pest. So these two are type of organophosphate pesticides. Then we have the carbamates as well, like carbofuron, we have oxamil, we have jetron, we have then carbaryl. Carbaryl is a type of carbamate type of pesticides, which is also called as sevin. Like the lindane is the name of the benzene hexachloride. This is the same pesticide which was manufactured by the Union Carbide Limited. And Union Carbide Limited was the same company who was responsible for the Bhopal gas tragedy in the year of 1984. So the multiple questions they can ask you from this one line. The very first question they can ask you, what is the name of the company? So that is Union Carbide Limited. What was manufactured by that company? So the manufactured thing by that company is the carbaryl or sevin. When the Bhopal gas tragedy takes place, so in the year of 1984, so that was the year when the Bhopal gas tragedy happened. Then we have one question that what is the main compound that was leaked in the Union Carbide during the Bhopal gas tragedy? So that was the methyl isocyanate. This methyl isocyanate is a kind of gas. This gas was stored in a larger tanks, and these tanks have the methyl isocyanate, which is used for the manufacturing of the carbaryl or sevin. So, because in the Union Carbide itself, this tanker was present there, and the good amount of the methyl isocyanate was present there, and due to the leak of that gas, this Bhopal gas tragedy took place on that time, and this methyl isocyanate is the prominent thing which is used to make the carbaryl or sevin type of carbamate or pesticide. So I hope all these things are clear to you. And this Bhopal gas tragedy is the same tragedy which awaken the government to have some law or to have some protection type of rules and regulations, so which will protect the human beings and other organisms for such incidents. So that's why we have the Environmental Pollution Act. And this Environmental Pollution Act of 1986 is result of the Bhopal gas tragedy. So after Bhopal gas tragedy 1984, the government decided that we will have also some kind of rules, laws, and regulations. So according to that, we can protect the environment from these kind of incidents. So that's why after Bhopal gas tragedy in 1984, this Environmental Pollution Act was passed in the Parliament in the year of 1986. So I hope this all things are clear to you right now. One by one, the major type of the pesticides we have to discuss as well as their harmful effect, because sometimes the questions can be found from that portion as well. The very first type of the pesticide that we have to discuss is the endosulfan. Endosulfan is a type of pesticide which is organochlorine in nature. This is what? This is organochlorine type of pesticide. So this endosulfan is very neurotoxic. Neurotoxic means it will inhibit or attack on the neurons present in the body or the neurotransmitters present in the body of the insect, and ultimately the insect will lost its all the senses and ultimately it will die. So endosulfan is a type of neurotoxic type of pesticide. Then this is lipophilic in nature. So we all know organochlorine are water insoluble. So if anything is water insoluble, it means in the water it is not solubilizing. So it means that this particular chemical, you can solve it or dissolve it in the oil or fat, or you can say in lipid. Lipid is what? Lipid is actually oil or fat or anything. So anything which is not mixing in the water, so that will mix in the oil because oil or lipid is non-lipophilic in nature. So they can dissolve the non-polar liquid on them easily. So that's why it is lipophilic in nature or lipid soluble because this is insoluble in water. Why it is insoluble? Because it is a organochlorine. It is having CCl bond. So if it is having CCl bond, it means non-polar nature. It means insoluble in water. If it is insoluble in water, it means it is a lipophilic or it is a lipid soluble. Then it is a teratogen. What is the meaning of teratogen? Teratogens is the word which is used for the chemicals which can easily cross the placenta. Placenta, what is placenta? Placenta is that thing through which mother and the fetus can connect. I'm not saying baby. It is mother and fetus in the womb of that particular mother. The main attached thing between the two is the placenta. And this placenta, if anything cross the placenta, it means it can go to the fetus from the mother's body. So those chemicals which can cross this placenta and go from the mother's body to the fetus or the upcoming baby, you can say. So those all compounds or chemicals are termed as teratogens. So endosulfan is a type of teratogen. A small amount of this chemical, if it is present in the mother, so it can go to the fetus or baby easily by crossing the placenta. So this is another feature of the endosulfan. Then endosulfan is also responsible for the biomagnification. Biomagnification you can also find out in the DDT. For example, if suppose there is a chemical released in the pond and the fishes take that all chemical, then these fishes are eaten by the big fishes, or maybe yes, big fishes you can say. Then the big fishes will eat the multiple small fishes, and all that particular chemical which was present in these small fishes will come to a large fish. Now this large fish have more concentration of that chemical as compared to the small fishes. Then we have a seal here. The seal will eat multiple amount of the big fishes or the large fishes. So all that chemical which was present in these all fishes, that will go to a seal. Now the seal will have the more amount than the all small fishes because it is directly going to the seal. Then the seal is maybe eaten by a polar bear. The polar bear will eat the multiple seals, and this polar bear will have the highest amount of chemical present in these all food chain. So this type of phenomena where the concentration increases by increasing the food level or increasing the trophic level, so that particular thing is called as biomagnification. So in the DDT, in the endosulfan, this type of biomagnification you can find out. So this is what? This is increase in concentration by passing the each food chain level or by crossing the each trophic level of the food chain or the food web. So that is the biomagnification, which is predominantly found in the pesticides, especially the endosulfan and DDT. Another term we use is the bioaccumulation. Now, bioaccumulation is different from the biomagnification. This bioaccumulation is not feature of the endosulfan. This is separately I am discussing here how it is different from the biomagnification. The bioaccumulation means increase in the concentration in the same trophic level. It is not going up in the upper trophic level. And after death of these all organisms, it will again come down to the soil or again come back to the atmosphere or environment. So this type of phenomena is called as the bioaccumulation, which is different from the biomagnification. So I hope both the term as well as the endosulfan properties are clear to you.